Why is it so hard to get volunteers in church? If you've been in ministry any amount of time, this is a question you have at least asked once. Why is it so hard to get people to volunteer? Why is it so hard to fill the nursery or the kids area? Why is it so hard to get people to be ushers and greeters? Why is it so hard to fill all the positions that we need to run a church on a Sunday morning? Why? Why is that so hard? It's their church. Don't they want to be a part of it? Don't they want to jump in and help? What are the issues that are creating volunteers? Well, what are the issues that are keeping your congregants from becoming volunteers? Why are they sitting in the pews, hanging back, and not being a part? That's the question that we're going to ask today in this episode of the Ministry Hackers Podcast. So the big question is this: how do pastors like us who remain focused on the mission of Jesus and serving our communities without being affected by everything in the world around us, how do we increase our effectiveness while living a lifestyle that doesn't compromise our health, our families, or our personal relationships with Jesus? That's the question this podcast is going to answer. I'm Dr. Brandon Party Cooper, and welcome to the Ministry Hackers Podcast. Welcome to this episode of the Ministry Hackers Podcast. So glad that you're here, being a part of this episode, wherever you are, whatever it is you are doing. It's a little chilly here in Virginia Beach. I got my sweatshirt on, repping one of my schools that I went to, Regent. Honestly, it's why we ended up here in Virginia Beach. But it's a little chilly, a little brisk, we would say. And getting ready today to help a friend move. They are moving here in town, and so getting ready to jump in there and help them out. But wanted to tackle this question today. Why is it so hard for us to get volunteers? If you've been in ministry, if you've been pastoring at all for any amount of time, whether it's small church, big church, there's always this question of why is it so hard to get people involved? Why is it so hard to move them from the pew or from their chair or from their seat? Why is it hard to move them from there into some area of involvement, whether it's helping out in the kids area, whether it's ushers and greeters, whether it's video and production, whether it's hospitality, whatever your needs are. My guess is if you're like most churches, you have more need than you have people willing to fill them. Most churches, statistically across the board, will run anywhere between 10 and 20% of involvement, volunteer involvement, which is not a high amount. So, which means that most of our people coming to church are just coming, they're sitting in their pews, they're hanging out with people, they're talking in the lobby, and then they're going home. They're not involved. And for us, for you and me as a pastor, we ask the question, like, how invested really are they? How involved, if they're not getting to be a part, if they're not doing other things other than just coming, then how invested, how bought in, how much are they really a part of our church? And at the same time, for you and for me, there are so many things that go into a Sunday morning, or there's so many things that go into running the ministries of the church. If we don't have other people involved and a part, then it puts it back on us and our staff, if we have one. It puts it back on us to get everything done. And then at some point, you as the pastor, your staff, you start to ask the question, at what point do we just shut things down? We can't do that because we don't have anybody to do that. We can't be a part of that because we don't have anybody to be involved, to run it. We can't get enough people. And so at what point do we just start saying, sorry, we can't do that? You have these great ideas. Sorry, we can't do that because we just don't have anybody to be involved. At the very extreme level, at what point do we do things like shut down the nursery because we just don't have anybody to sit in there with the babies? Or at what point does that then become a hindrance to families coming to church because we don't have enough people in the nursery? We don't have enough people to watch the kids. At what point does that then happen? And so what I want to do today is I want to give you four reasons why people are not getting involved, why they're not volunteering, why they're not jumping on board, so that you can better understand what you can do to help them get more involved. And the first reason is that people are more guarded with their time. Now, this is something that is, it has grown since COVID, but existed before that. People are more guarded with their time. We have seen an increase over the years where families are a lot more involved with sports, families are a lot more involved with extracurricular activities for their kids. Everybody's just busy. Work is busy, home is busy, sports is busy, school is busy, everything is busy. Every family, especially families with younger kids, are just busy. We have lots going on. And so people are just not able to fit in more stuff in their days. And so now since COVID, I feel like that has become way more increased. We spent, for some of us, depending on where you are in the country, you spent almost 2 years inside, separated, some sort of isolation, some sort of separation, some sort of social distancing, whatever the case is. Families become a lot more insular in that process. They just existed within themselves. They didn't get out a whole lot. They didn't interact with other people. And I think to some extent that created a habit in some ways for us to just be home and do our thing and be busy with all the stuff that we have to do, not really taking on a lot of things that we don't necessarily have to do. We're not asking for more responsibilities. We're just doing what must be done. At the same time, I think it also introduced this idea to some families where they're just not going to do anything other than be at home. They liked being at home. They liked watching their movies and TV shows. They liked sitting down and playing games. They liked just having them and not outside influences. And so getting involved has become a lot more difficult for families simply because they just don't want to. They like the environment that they've in, or even in some extreme cases, some people are just afraid to be too involved. They're afraid to overcommit. They're afraid to be around too many people too often, whatever the case is. People are a lot more guarded with their time. We have the mindset now, it's growing, where time is your greatest asset. And so some people are saying, you know what, I want to guard my time. I want to create boundaries. And a lot of that is from excesses that were happening, in the decades prior, where, families were never together because they were always working, and families were never really being a part of things together. They weren't spending time together because their attentions and time were taken up in other places. And so they've just adjusted, and they're guarding their time, and they're saying no to a lot of things that they would have said yes to. And so what we have to do is we have to understand how to make that valuable to them. Being a part of this team, being a part of your church, being a part of this ministry, those things are valuable. And it has to go beyond just because you need to, or because it's a spiritual discipline, or because as a church we need you to. We don't want that. We want to show them the value of being involved, the value of being involved in what Jesus is doing in your church, in your community, and how it's beneficial to them as an individual as well as to them and their family. And so they're more guarded with their time. We have to find ways to make volunteering and being a part of ministry valuable to them so they will give their time and be a part. So that's the first one. The second one is people have been burned by volunteering before. Again, if you've been in ministry at any amount of time, you know this, you've seen this. I'm sure you've had people come to your church, check out your church, visit your church and say, I'm just looking for a new church. The church I was at before was this, and this. And, I just didn't want to be involved anymore. I didn't want to, be committed anymore. Or I did it for X amount of years and I never got a break. And I just want to come, and I just want to come to service. Unfortunately, because most churches, we're running that 10 to 20% volunteerism, we have a greater need for volunteers, then sometimes it's perceived they need to be involved. And then what happens is, we have, that one sweet person who has been in the nursery for the last 6 months without a break, and we allow them to just be there because we need them there. Nobody else will do it. They're willing to do it. And so we just let them do it. But over time, that wears them down. It draws them out, and they're going to take a break. And a lot of times when they say, hey, I'm done and I need a break, that means they're leaving the church. They're done. And so by the time they come to another church, or maybe you have taken in people who have done that at other churches, they were done, they volunteered, they needed a break, they came to your church, you invited them in, they sat in service, and now it's time for them to get involved. And they're like, no, I'm good. No, I don't want to be involved. No, I'm good. Appreciate it. I thank you, Pastor, but I'm just gonna come to service, because they got burned out, because they got overused and they got burned out. What we have to do is we have to create an environment with boundaries so people don't get burned out. I had a conversation just a couple of days ago with somebody who is just now getting involved with our church. They've been here for about 6 weeks, maybe 2 months, just now getting involved with our church. And they came from a very unhealthy ministry environment where they got burned. They got burned out. They got hurt. And they have a lot of issues with that because they had a really bad situation they came out of. And they're just now at the point where they're saying, hey, I want to get involved, Pastor. I want to be a part. And I'm telling them, okay, but we're going to start you off small. Not because you don't have the talent, not because we don't want you to be involved, but because we want to guard you in this process. Because their personality and their attitude, because they've been involved before, their approach is they go deep fast. But we don't want to just take people deep fast and burn them out again and send them out. We want to walk them through in a healthy way so that they last a long time, so that they're in it for a while, and so that they remain healthy in the process. So you have to create an environment with boundaries. You have to create an environment with structure that guards people from being overused and burning out in the process. It's always better to let somebody take a 6-month break than to use them for 6 more months and they burn out, they're done, and most likely leave the church altogether. And so that's the second reason. People have been burned by volunteering. The third reason is that people don't trust you'll take care of them. Now, this goes with the second one, but it's a little bit deeper than that. When people walk into a church that is struggling for volunteers, I've been a part of churches like this. My wife and I, we have church shopped at different points in our marriage, and gone to different churches to try and find a home church for us when we weren't serving a ministry. And there were some churches that when we would go, there is the guest experience where they're super excited you're there. They shake your hand. They're happy to see you, whatever. But then there's also the, we really need you here approach. And it was almost overwhelming for us of like, you could feel their desperation of, hey, we have a young family. Hey, they're sharp and they've been in ministry before. And we really could use them here, 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 and here. And so let's just get them involved. And you feel that, like we felt that. And so if you're a pastor and you have a lot of volunteer need and you have people coming in, new guests, or maybe they've been there for a few weeks and you feel like, okay, now it's time to try and get them involved, because we know that if they're involved, it's more likely they're going to stay. Be careful, because there's a good chance they're going to sense that. They're going to feel it. And they're not quite sure that your need to have them involved is going to allow you to protect them from getting too involved, or protect them from overcommitting, or protect them from doing something too long term, or protect them from actually having time with their families. As pastors, you and I, the reality is that our mentality is we do ministry. Now, maybe you've created some boundaries around that. Maybe you guard some time with your family. That's great, and you should. It's one of the things that we really focus on here with the Ministry Hackers is we really focus on creating that abundant life, that life that has time with our families and has time for hobbies and has those things. But a lot of pastors still, we're 24/7 all the time, all on call. If you need something, let me know and I'll be there in a heartbeat. That's our approach. Well, volunteers, when they have that precedent set for them or they see that from us, that's scary for them because they're not called into full-time ministry. And they've probably been asked before to do more than they were willing to do. And pastors didn't protect them. And they learned not to trust pastors and not to buy into all of the spin and all of the, oh, it's good for you. And they bought into it once and maybe they got burned, or they bought into it and, it didn't work out as well as they thought it would. And we just have to show them that that they can trust us, that we're going to take care of them, that we're more concerned about their development than filling a spot. Volunteerism is not about filling spots. It's not about making sure the service runs. It's not about those things. It's about developing people. And if we keep our eyes focused on developing people, then we'll have more volunteers because they know they can trust us. They know that we will take care of them in the process. So that's the third one. And the last one. People want to matter. They don't want to be used. People want to matter. They don't want to be used. What I mean by that is that they want to know that they are valuable even if they don't volunteer, even if they're not involved, even if they don't do anything other than come to church. Now, you and I both know being involved in some sort of ministry, being a part of the church culture that you have there, being a part is better for them. It's healthier. They grow. I would argue it's the answer to the Great Commission. Go and make disciples. That's for everybody. That's not just for you and I who are pastors. That's for everybody. So getting involved and moving forward and growing, those are all necessary pieces to a healthy spiritual life in relationship with Jesus. You and I know that. But that doesn't always come across. And so when people feel like they might be used, they're out. But when people feel valuable, when people feel like you value them no matter what they do, no matter if they're involved or not, no matter if they sit in the pew or they're the most involved volunteer, that you value them. At the end of the day, what we're doing, our job as pastors, is to value people at a very high level. We are in relationship with people. We are leading people. We're preaching. We are developing. We are doing all these things so they go deeper into their relationship with Jesus because they are valuable to him. And so we have to watch how we approach our volunteerism because it's very easy for us to miscommunicate that. And hey, you're valuable to us as long as you're involved over here. You're valuable to us because you do this great thing. You're valuable to us because you fill all of these holes and you're a committed volunteer and you always show up. And that's why we love you. Is that really why we love them? Or do we love them because they're a creation by God in relationship with Jesus and we want to see them fulfill their destiny? We have to be careful what we're communicating. Do we value people and do they know that, even if they're never involved? Because here's the thing, if you value your people and you show them that you value them and you're there teaching them, guiding them, growing them, developing them, the natural progression is to be involved. If we push and we prod and we coax and we try to somehow manipulate them into getting involved in our church and whatever area, department, or ministry we want them to, if we do that, they will sense that. People are marketed to all the time. All the time. And when they're marketed to, they don't feel valued. They feel like a sale or they feel like a number. We can't sell them ministry. We can't sell them being involved. We can't sell them volunteerism. We can't sell it. So we need to stop selling. We need to value them, love them, guide them, stand with them, hold them through the process, and remind them they're valuable no matter what. Because to Jesus, they're valuable no matter what. So they should be valuable no matter what to us as their pastors. That's the key. And when they feel valued, when they feel important, when they feel like they're a part, then they get involved. They become volunteers, not out of obligation, not because they feel like it's the right thing to do being a part of this church. They do it because it's an outpouring of their relationship with Jesus. It's an outpouring of their trust in you and your church and the culture. They get involved for all the right reasons. That's the goal. That's what we want. If we do that, if we approach it that way, we value people first and we fill positions second. If we approach it that way, then I guarantee you your volunteerism will switch. That 10, 20% will rise to 30, 40. Currently, right now, at our church, we are enjoying a 65 to 70% involvement rate. 65 to 70% of our church is involved. A lot of it is because we value them, we give them opportunities, and we allow them to decide where they want to go. That's the key. That's the goal. And so I'm hoping that these four will help you frame kind of how you're approaching your volunteers, how you're approaching relationships, how you're approaching just how you're developing your ministries. If we put people first, we show them they can trust us. We show them that we're going to not use them to burn out. We show them that they're valuable beyond what they do for us. If we do that, if you do that, then you're going to create a culture and an environment where people want to be involved, where they want to jump on board, where they want to help see the church grow, where they want to be a part of this ministry and that ministry, if you value them first. So I believe that every church, your church, my church, I believe that every church can enjoy a greater amount of volunteers, because what we're doing is growing people. We're not growing churches. We talked about that in a couple episodes ago. We're not growing churches. If you're growing a church, then this podcast may not be for you. But if you're interested in growing people, this is the place, because that's what we're focused on, growing people. Because I believe 100%, you grow people, your church will grow. You grow people, your ministries will grow. You grow people, your community will be impacted by what your church is doing, by what you're doing, by what your people are doing. You grow people. You bring them closer to Jesus and help them become like him. You do those things, everything else will take care of itself. Focus on people. That's where we start. As pastors, that's where we need to focus our attention. Growing people. Anything short of that is missing the mark. All right? I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for being here on this podcast with me, and I will see you in the next episode.